This is High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1.
And welcome back to High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1. It's been a busy show already. We've spoken to Michael Stevenson, the Hall of Famer from Northumberland High School on the Northern Neck. We've talked with Keith from Smithfield. You'll hear later on in the show from Pete Zell of Ocean Lakes and Carson DeMartini, the Region 6A baseball champions. Eric Johnson, new boys basketball coach at Grassfield High School. Matt Hatfield with you alongside the coach Ed Young. And joining us in studio now is the head boys basketball coach from the past 18 years at Lake Taylor High School. Got the mission accomplished in March of 2018 with a thrilling double overtime victory over Hanley in the state championship game. 255 wins later, he's calling it a career. And it all started here in Hampton Roads as a standout guard, an all-time performer for Jack Baker at Maury High School with the Commodores. Then at Hampton University, we say good morning and congrats to Coach Kenny Brown on a great career. How's it feel? You've been retired now as a coach for what, 3-4 days? Is it surreal to you, or has it hit you a little bit?
Since Tuesday morning, I've been retired. So less than a week. But I really just want to, before we begin, to send my condolences to the families and the loved ones that were affected by the tragedy that took place out in Virginia Beach. My sincere condolences. And also, I just want to give a very good friend of mine, two-time state champion guard. We played Boo Williams together, Rico Campbell. We played, we was rivals in Norfolk during our era. I just want to send my condolences to him and his family. I just, got word yesterday that his son, little Rico, passed away.
Oh, it's terrible to hear. Oh, well, thoughts and prayers go out to him as well. And it shows you how much with sports, and both you guys know this, having coached, I think, between you combined almost 50 years with you and Ed, that the sports it's an escape, but lives are so precious, and sometimes the game is insignificant in what the big picture really means,
Yes. And like me and Ed was talking right before I went on the air, a lot of people take it for granted, that you coach, but, I'm definitely not going to be defined as, the guy that went out there and did 32 minutes a night on the court for a win or loss, and then you have people that critique you on that. But the win that they didn't see was the work before the game, with you have to deal with so many different kids, so many different personalities. You have to, really stay professional with parents, loved ones. Everybody want to play the same amount of time. So it was beyond 32 minutes. So when I got into it, I made sure that, I prayed on having my heart in a place where people was going to say, how many kids did you get in school? How many kids did you get scholarships for? And I want to say this on the air. Ed been doing it for about 32 years, and I'll just talk about me and him. Ed been doing it for about 32. I've been doing it for about 18. At the end of the day, we cannot get kids in school. The kids have to, we give them an opportunity to develop their skill level, and then we get them exposure. But a kid can be a great player, not knocking any kid that played the game of basketball, of what we're discussing. But a kid can be a great player on the court, and he might give it all that he got in the classroom, but they struggle in the classroom to meet the requirements for the NCAA eligibility center. So I said the other day, and I don't really do a lot of social media, but since I retired, I could do a little more.
Oh, yeah, you can be an instant social media analyst and an instant fill-in whenever Ed goes on his assignments or whatever. We'll make you part of the program here.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a lot of different things. But I'll say that, my goal was every kid that I coach, I wanted to teach them how to become successful, productive young men in society. I think if that was my main goal, then the ones that were scholarship bound, will fall in place.
Well, let me. I'm listening to Kenny saying this stuff, and of course, Kenny will know that I'm a little upset with him because I've said this in the past, and I'm going to say it again. In my profession, coaching, I hate seeing good people, guys that we really need in this profession, leave because You need it. And when I heard Kenny Brown was retiring, and my first comment was, no, that can't be. He's too young. He's got too much to offer. But again, you have your own right to do what you feel you need to do. You're a family guy. That's something I noticed about you years and years ago. And you made a good comment about people think our job is to get kids scholarship. And I've said this so many times, and there's been many kids that played for me that have gone on to the next level. And you want to give me some credit for that? I tell people thank you. That's fine. But the credit goes to the kid, number one, who put that time, work, and effort in. The light went off early. It goes to those parents who never gave up on that kid, that kept pushing. Okay, because as they say, it takes a village to raise the kid. It takes a village to get that kid into school. And then we get judged on, okay, kids aren't going to school. You're not doing your job. You're losing games. You're not doing your job. They don't see the stuff like a Kenny Brown, who's got to deal with some really at-risk kids. I coached in Norfolk. You got to deal with some at-risk kids who have a whole lot else going on just to get them, A, coming to school regularly, B, getting some kind of grades and not causing an issue, C, overcoming a family situation that nobody else knows about, D, maintaining that eligibility throughout, and E, getting them on the court, and you still got to get on his butt about this is what you got to do. People don't see that kind of stuff. And they want quick to judge a coach that he's not winning, kids aren't going to scholarship. Don't get me to say something on the radio to get me fired. This guy right next to us has done all that. And he continues, and he will continue to do it in retirement because of those kind of relationships he's built. That's why I get ticked off when I see good people like this retire, because we need in the profession, because we got too many young dudes coming in the profession who think the game revolves around them, that they're this and that, but they, instead of working with a player, they got to go recruit somebody. I ain't got a point guard. How about working with the kids you have and make one, develop your kids instead of going out and getting them? And those are the kind of people I don't have time to, but I don't want to get off on this tangent. But Kenny, I want people to understand, and I'll say it because I've been known to say it, the work and time you've done behind the scenes could be as great as any coach that's ever put a whistle around his neck, not only in this area, but anywhere. And that's the thing that bothers me that people don't see. You see it, you've done it, you've been through it, but that's where you need to get your accolades.
Joined by Kenny Brown, the head basketball coach at Lake Taylor the past 18 years, now retiring from that position, and 255 wins, a state championship here on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1. If you want to talk to Coach Brown, you can call in at 757-687-9494. Phone lines are open all morning long as he's here with us until noon. Give us a call at 757-687-9494 right here on ESPN Radio 94.1. We thought last year after you won the state championship, and you've been knocking on that door trying to get there, a few years ago lost that heartbreaker to Monacan, and this year you're in another close game, and I thought your words you spoke were so prophetic after the state championship game that you won against Hanley. You know, we thought that might be it for you. You might ride off to the sunset, kind of that perfect storybook ending. You came back. What made you come back this past year from that? And did you think about it at that time? Because I know you've been thinking about the last few years potentially that retirement could be coming or the end could be near for your coaching.
Well, after the state title, I kind of like, we rejoiced in, especially me and my wife, but before the state title, we had been looking at, when it's going to be the time to announce. So when we won it, it was almost like, man, this can be a storybook, ending. But me being the competitor that I am, before the 4 kids that we had to transfer on us, I looked at what we was losing after the state championship, and it was probably, 95% of the scoring power, all the defense. Only we was returning Zariel Mitchell, who played second semester, and Davon Blackwell, who just whenever his number was called, he was ready to deliver, and of course he delivered.
Those big threes against Hanley in the state championship. But you lose, for people that are just tuning in or aren't familiar with it, you lose Darion Sebron, who's going down to NC State, Joe Bryant, who played this past year at Norfolk State, Jalen Jordan, who had the unbelievable Virginia Preps Classic game against LC Vernon Richmond in that win at Francis Marion Division II. The twins there, Tyrone and Tyler Washington, who were just bulldogs defensively locked down. So you lost practically an entire team. This year's team, under 500, but you got hot at the right time as a 9 seed. You take out a very, as Ed knows, we've been hyping them as a this year's surprise dark horse, Great Bridge, very pesky team in the first round. You get on a run, you win the region title again. Did it kind of hit you this year like, wow, this might have been, I even wrote this, that this might have been as equally impressive a job given that you lost that old team as the year before.
If you can look back, Matt, on Twitter, right before the season started, and I think when we had the 4 transfers, and let me say this on the air, with the 4 transfers.
You lost 4 players that transferred out.
Yes,
okay.
And it doesn't matter the name or what the circumstances was. I always said a parent, family members, the kid got to do what's best for them. So when we lost the 4 transfers, and then we had 7 graduates, we only had 2 returning players. And I said on Twitter, this is going to be the best coaching year that me and my staff would have since I've been coaching. I said that before the season started because I'm a behind-the-scenes homework type guy. I take notes on, and I'm going to give up some secrets, but, coaching, I take notes on. I just watch the NBA or college games when Hubie Brown is commentating.
Oh, he's great.
I write down notes of what he say on the screen and rolled out of bounds, why you should feed the bigs. The guards are taking too many shots when the bigs are down there working their tail off. And then Digger Phelps, some other guys. So, and then I go online, certain teams that play a matchup zone, and our guys are a little fast to do things. So I try to figure out online how do I what are different things that I could do to beat the matchup zone. Tyrann Matthews, one of my assistant coaches, said it best. I've been carrying a notepad around, and my mother, who's my hero, Catherine Hood, I've been carrying a notepad around since I was 9 years old. So I didn't know if I was going to go into teaching, but I always was a strategist, and I couldn't leave after that great run. I wanted a challenge, and God put it in place for me to have the perfect challenge because I know it was a few critics saying that, man, he don't have anything. He's going to lose a lot. And I took a couple of beatings this year, Elsie Berg and Maury. But I told our guys this. Our staff said, hey, we got the chess match going on. Just get in the playoffs. We get in the playoffs, we could be one of the better teams.
When you end up getting all the way to the state semifinals, lost to a Louisa team that just had a great second half with Chris Shelton, who's going to Hampton University where you play. What a steal for the Pirates.
HU Pirates, number 1. Chris Shelton, you my guy. You my guy.
I'll tell you what, and we made this comment, Ed can piggyback on this. Well, 2 things. One, to go back to your notepad point. I see guys like yourself and Ed, Jack, so many coaches. I met, whether you guys are scouting or I'll be on the phone with the coach, and he'll say, give me a second. And I know they're writing down notes from what's on a game on TV in college basketball or NBA, but you guys have to do that all the time, and it's amazing because it's just the people don't know that stuff when they're yelling and screaming at you guys, hey, put so-and-so in the game, and that's such a big deal. It really is for that. And 2, on the state championship game, we made this comment about John Marshall Phoebus, which Ed saw, and then I think that day in between this year, the VHSL, when you have a quick turnaround like that, I thought Louisa's legs were shot in that state final against GW Danville. That's taking nothing away from GW. Fine ball club, deserving of a state championship. But that quick turnaround, I think it affected emotional games, Louisa and Phoebus, who both moved on and ended up losing in the state final.
Yeah, because Louisa County, they really had to we shot the ball very well in the first half. And me being a coach for a long time, Ed can tell you, hey, man, it's a false sense of security right here. My guys, they just knocking down threes. But we harassed them in the first half, and they knew it was coming. And we knew that they had a couple of great shooters. That opened, they like layups. So we thought that we wore them down. And I didn't see George Washington, Danville, but I thought Louisa County point guard single-handedly handled the pressure that we've been given for years. And I'll tell you this, a lot of people like Ed say with young coaches, they'll find excuses after a loss like that. They'll leave the locker room, not knocking anybody, but they'll leave the locker room all upset, and the referees this, the referees that. I had to find the young man, Xavier Hunter, yeah. Xavier Hunter. I found him while they were still talking in Churchland. And I didn't even tell him that I played the point. I said, young man, I have to shake your hand personally because tonight you was the MVP. Nobody handled our pressure like that as well as you did. With the crab dribbles, inviting the double teams. Strong as a bull. Then I found out he was the running back.
Yeah.
But I had to commend him, and that's what type of coach I am. Everybody's upset with me, but at the end of the day, I had to give it to the guy that was a master floor general, and I think he did. When I saw the state, he got wore down a little bit.
Well,
it's championship.
Real quick, before we go to break here, we're going to have Eric Johnson with us, joining us from Grassfield High School, new basketball coach. Ed, you and I walked out of the gym the year that they lost on a buzzer beater to Smithfield, about as horrific a game. And we both commented we couldn't imagine just how graceful you were in handling that. Not just that loss, the Monacan loss were tough. And you could have easily, with that team, maybe won 3 or 4 in a row. But that was something that stuck out to us like, man, he took that about as well as you could. And you had one like that this year, Ed, with Ashley James hitting a buzzer beater from half court. And that's nothing easy to get over when your season's over, knowing that one bounce or one shot can determine the whole thing.
Well, I'll say this real quick before we go, before you go to a commercial. My wife, LaDonna Lynette Brown, I mean, who is my everything, the one that kept me going, in the nights when you probably saw tears from a 50-footer at home. She's the one that saw it. Living by faith through my pastor, Greg Perry, I had to put the scripture in my wallet for every game. No weapons formed against us shall prosper, 54:17, Isaiah. And that kept me grounded from the free throw line, 2016. But I'll tell you, it carried over when we lost the 50-footer. If y'all probably can remember, devastating loss. Everybody in the gym, they was pointing fingers at me, and the kids from Smithfield was crying. But when my wife told me to keep a hold of that scripture, I didn't let any outside weapons come against me. I stood there when the coach was in tears, and I let them celebrate. And I don't think anybody lined up behind me. And the coach just kept saying, "Hey, coach, I'm sorry." I say, "Hey, man, heck of a win. You deserve it." I'm humble enough to say I can stand here and let your guys celebrate, and I'll wait for them to finish, and then we'll shake hands.
Those are all-time classic games. I mean, it could go either way. You were involved with that this year. It was similar ending. That was just yours was a little further, but almost identical type of shots. And then one was banked. The other one I think went in right away, or it wasn't banked in, but amazing shots.
Well, it's just Kenny knows in a game that's back and forth can go any way, which means you can lose it, and you've got more coming. You got more games to come. You got to keep that composure. Yeah, it might have been a bad referee call. A kid might have missed a defensive assignment, and you're going to catch flack for that. But you don't worry about that. But there's more coming. In Kenny's case, a title was coming. You might not know it at that time, but it was. And I remember we watched that. If I'm not mistaken, tell me if I'm wrong because I forget a lot. That was Smithfield's first lead of the game, or
it might have been
like early first quarter, maybe.
Yeah.
So things were working, but you could tell your kids were still struggling a little bit because Smithfield kept coming back. And I'm not going to make excuses because I'm the last guy. There were calls, and I remember saying to Matt, I said, man, that call was ridiculous. And I said it 2 or 3 in a row, and they kind of went against you. But you're going to have that in a game, so you have to be able to deal with that. But this is why I say my point is, as a coach, you got to come in that locker room. You got to find something good to say. You got to have something motivating for those kids to come back. And then you got to come out and hear a crescendo of people saying, well, you didn't lose the game. Your coach lost the game. Coach did that. And, you want to snap because they don't understand, but you're never going to make those people understand. All you're going to do is bring fire to yourself, give those people ammunition. I look at them now and I just smile because they have no clue. You have scripture. I don't have the scripture in me, which I wish I would, but I look at people and say, they're clueless. They don't understand. I can't step down to their level. My first instinct and tribute is to my kids. And that's why I continue to do what I do. Hey, Coach, that's a good thing. And I'll tell you this, while you go further on, take that Psalms 3:3. Put that in your pocket for me because I always admire what you do. But that Psalms 3:3 will put a shield up for you. The God will put a shield up for you and protect you from. I mean, I even had a female fan whose son ended up not playing the rest of the year that year, not because of my situation. And she came after me. Her son came after me. And I just said, hey, they kind of like in my face, like, yeah, you lost. And that 54-17 scripture, I was like, it's okay. I'll take that.
Hey, listen, if anybody blames the coaches on half-court buzzer beaters and stuff, they're out of their mind because you can't recreate those plays if you try them 50 to 100 times. It's like the shot that the kid for UVA made, too. We got more with Kenny Brown. He's retiring as the head basketball coach of Lake Taylor High School. You want to talk to him all morning long, you can do so at 757-687-9494. Shoot us a comment or a question on Twitter, too, at HS Sports Talk 941, HS Sports Talk 941. And Eric Johnson comes your way next from Grassfield High School. School on ESPN Radio 94.1.